In the fall of 2020, following the biggest momentum of the Black Lives Matter protest and the police brutality/hate crimes that provoked national and international uproar, I, as a teacher, was told not to facilitate a Black Lives Matter discussion in my classroom. Later, during the 2020 U.S. presidential election in November, arguably the most important election in U.S. history, I was, again, warned not to discuss the election nor the results of the election with students who were eager to engage in that conversation. Instead, I was told to ignore, and deny. People tell me all the time that teaching shouldn't be political, but teaching is inherently political. The Board of Education deciding what concepts are taught in schools per the mandated curriculum is political. School districts and school administration defining the way teachers can teach these concepts is political. Why is the U.S.'s involvement in World War I and World War II included in Common Core standards and not the U.S.'s involvement in numerous genocides beyond the commonly taught and glossed over Native American genocide? Why is Shakespeare, a white poet and playwright, specifically outlined in Common Core standards, and not James Baldwin, a queer Black poet, playwright, and novelist? These guidelines are not unintentionally favoring an American, white, cis male, heterosexual perspective. They are openly favoring that perspective and political agenda. Any teacher who teaches outside of this agenda, filling in the gaps and misrepresentations in the curriculum, is the one considered a radical indoctrinator, not simply an equitable educator. How can we provide students with a fair education when we're told to ignore history and facts that still affect our society today? How can we trust that students can be successful in the real world if they're not being taught to critically analyze that world's socio-political power constructs and dynamics along with their impact? These are questions that haunt me and many other educators who view the act of good teaching as political activism as well. These questions have been answered with school boards banning discussion of critical race theory in 23 states, mostly in the South. CRT critiques how the social construction of race and institutionalized racism perpetuate a hierarchy of race that tosses people of color to the bottom tiers and posits white people as the top tiers. It also focuses on race's intersections with other identities, including sexuality, gender identity, and others. Instead of ignoring the dreadfully dark and racist American past and present, it recognizes that slavery, segregation, and the defining of Black Americans and other people of color as second-class citizens pervades our nation's social structures. It doesn't call for people to prescribe to a particular set of beliefs other than acknowledgement of the truth when thinking about America's race problems. Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, one of the CRT founders, insists censorship is certainly not the answer to controversial material and is inconsistent with our most basic constitutional values. There's no denying that banning CRT discussions in schools is blatant censorship. Denying teachers the opportunity to engage in political discussions without risking their jobs is censorship. Denying our students an equitable education is not the solution to our country's problems. Regardless of what legislation is passed and what orders I receive from superiors, I will make sure that my students are receiving the education they are owed in order to contribute to our society in meaningful ways once they graduate. I am done ignoring and denying. Why aren't we all? In the fall of 2020, following the